TWINLESS is a black comedy that follows two young men who have each lost their respective twin brothers. Roman, played by Dylan O'Brien, starts going to support group meetings to help him cope with his loss, and it's here that he meets Dennis, played by writer-director James Sweeney. The two of them end up becoming close friends, each filling the void in the other's life, but tension looms as Dennis carries a secret that could destroy their friendship. That is the best way that I can summarize this plot without giving away major spoilers, but this is a character study about grief. It's about the strange ways we react to losing someone and how that can amplify our most abundant traits. For Roman, his anger issues start to show up more, but for Dennis, his thirst for belonging and desires get the better of him. But both of them feel the weight of their loneliness getting heavier, and the load gets lightened by the other's company. This movie is a perfect example of how when people are lonely, they become a lot more clingy with the people they do have, which sometimes bestows an unfair responsibility on those around them. It's a pretty formulaic story shell for a romance film, but these two are not dating, they're just friends, with one of them having a pretty selfish motive behind his actions. That's what really makes it interesting. In addition to the dark humor, it really feels like a black comedy because Dennis is doing some pretty messed up things. You probably will not be rooting for him. And that's why it's more so a character study. While grief is the trait that defines both of our characters, for Dennis, it's a story about false identity. He's very socially disconnected and obsessive, which does not help a person make friends, so he resorts to crafting an identity to become someone he believes is more likable. He is so used to lying that it has become a compulsion, even a skill if I may, that he is honed in place of actual social skills, but not beyond his recognition. He does have self-awareness, he's just a guy who has conceded to his own hopelessness. Again, he's played by director James Sweeney, and for the most part, he's pretty great. This character is obviously very flawed, and his performance allows us to recognize that without necessarily hating him. It more so just comes off as quirkiness, making him an enjoyable character to follow, despite obviously being messed up. Where his performance comes up short is definitely in the most emotional parts of the movie. There's a big moment where he's supposed to emotionally lose it, and he just does not get there at all. His acting chops not lining up with the intensity of the moment is played off more like a joke, and that scene fell a bit flat because of that. While the movie starts off from Roman's perspective, it really ends up feeling more like Dennis's story for a good duration. He's the POV for much of it, and he's the one with someone to lose here. But for Roman, it's a story about feeling whole again. He lost his brother, which for many twins can feel like having a large part of you ripped away. Having Dennis in his life is his way of coping with that loss, and having that soft and loving presence in his life helps him curb his anger issues. Dylan O'Brien does a great job, but it's even more impressive because he plays dual roles. We do get to see a little bit of Roman's twin brother Rocky, allowing Dylan to flex some pretty solid acting range. He does a good job playing both the sad and lonely dumb guy and the charismatic charmer. As for the rest of the cast, Marcy, played by Aisling Franciosi, was a lovely surprise delight. The movie does a wonderful job of framing her a certain way and eventually giving new context to her, giving her presence a lovely evolution. She really brightened up this movie, sometimes with literally just her smile alone. The overall tone of this movie is pretty tender, allowing for the emotional aspects to resonate, but this also sets the stage for some of the awkward humor to sneak up on you. Everything feels very quiet and authentic, like the in-betweens of life, giving some of the subtle jokes, the embarrassing moments, and the dark humor a proper amount of breathing room. The dark humor with its soft delivery is what really gives this movie legs. It really plays into the dark psychological aspects of the characters very well. For example, the first support group scene sets the tone perfectly, showing very early on how the movie can be really crudely funny and insensitive, but still also deeply emotional. There's also not that much music, really allowing for both the contemplative moments and the awkward moments to feel more authentic. The movie wasn't necessarily a laugh-out-loud riot so much as it was just humorous, but that keeps it serious where it needs to be. The humor does not undercut the much-needed emotional resonance. Because it's also pretty sad at times, this movie really shines during the parts where Roman is overwhelmed by grief, especially one moment in particular that will certainly pull on your heartstrings. For a story that sheds light on a very specific relationship dynamic and how taxing it can be to lose that, the sadder aspects were equally as important as the humor. That said, I kind of just feel like there was a little bit more room for each of those things. Again, the movie is not hilarious, it's humorous. And it's not heartbreaking, it's emotional. It has a good balance of sad versus funny content, but perhaps there just could have been a little bit more of each. There's a good chunk of the movie that just feels like a standard drama. Much of this movie is really smart. It is clearly helmed by a very thoughtful director with a lot of the unspoken things. There are things that are not explicitly stated that you can kind of put together, like with Roman's behavior and some of the things that have been stated about what it's like being a twin. You can put together some of the inferiorities that he likely struggled with growing up that define him now. The editing of this movie was also pretty spectacular. Several parts of it were comparable to how Sean Baker edits a lot of his movies, to my fellow Honora Tribe members out there. In between scenes, he likes to throw in a short bundle of clips at different times and different locations, almost like a 3 to 5 second montage without music, giving a more earnest glimpse of what characters are experiencing with each other. This movie also had one of the coolest uses of split screen that I've seen in recent films. I don't want to spoil the scene, but how it played out and how it played into the movie's central theme was really outstanding. So where this movie comes up short, in addition to not being super funny or super sad, is that it's also not all that tense. Obviously, the biggest point of anticipation is Dennis's secret being revealed. There are a couple close calls in the second act, but they just don't feel momentous, which would be fine if the ways that he is dodging being exposed were at least interesting, but also they're a little bit underwhelming. And the premise is just pretty familiar, with some of the plot points being a bit formulaic. It's a story where a character has a big secret that could destroy the relationship, and you're waiting to see just how badly things come crashing down. What is interesting though, in addition to the fact that it's about a friendship and not a romance, is the fact that we are not supporting Dennis, making the whole viewing angle feel unique. The tension isn't from thinking, oh no, I think he's about to find out, I hope he goes easy on the guy. It's from thinking, oh no, I think he's about to find out, I hope his fists don't hurt too bad from beating him up. And the ending, it's a bit of a cliche ending for this type of story, and it just doesn't work as well when you consider the darker aspects of the film. It's one of those endings where you're just like, okay, I get it. Endings are hard, and this is a really tough story to tie a bow on, but really, that's all you got? But all things considered, it's a solid movie. It actually won the Audience Award at Sundance earlier this year, and I think it's a pretty accurate portrait of male loneliness. So overall, this movie was pretty good. You will definitely have to be in the right mood for this. If you want something contemplative and dark, but still witty and silly, this is a good choice for either streaming or the theater. But if you're looking for a total home run of a dark comedy or an emotional sledgehammer, you might find the movie to be just a tad bit lacking in each of those departments. Again, the movie has those things, but it's definitely not the heaviest hitter in either department. Thanks for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really helps the channel grow. I will see you later this week with my review of The History of Sound.